You know how sometimes you're looking at a satellite map, just scrolling around, and you see something so strange you just have to figure out what it is? Well, the world is full of these weird, mysterious places you can only really see from way up high. And our story today, it starts in one of those spots, right in the middle of the Utah desert. So when you zoom in on this one particular area, this is what you see. A whole series of these impossibly bright electric blue ponds. They just look completely alien against that red rocky landscape. So what in the world are they? Why are they there? And what is going on with that incredible color? Well, as you can imagine, when people see these things, their imaginations just run wild. Some folks have guessed it's a top secret NASA experiment, because you can see them from space. Others thought, hey, maybe they're just really, really big swimming pools or some kind of natural geothermal spring. But the real answer, it's way more fascinating than any of that. To solve this mystery, we don't start with modern science. Nope. We have to go way back. The secret to those blue ponds begins with a really simple, ancient substance and a recipe that's over 1,500 years old. It's something called potash. For centuries, this is pretty much how you do it. First, you'd burn a bunch of hardwood, not for the heat, but specifically for its ash. Then, you take that ash, you put it in a pot with water, and you let all the good stuff dissolve. After that, you strain out all the solid bits and just let the sun do its thing, evaporating the water and leaving behind these little crystals. And this is where it gets its wonderfully simple name. You take ash, you put it in a pot. Potash. It's one of the most important chemicals people have been making for centuries, and its name is literally its own recipe. How cool is that? For a really long time, that's all potash was, this useful but kind of basic substance. But then, in 1807, a British scientist named Humphry Davy got curious. He took some damp potash, hooked it up to a powerful battery, and watched as these tiny little metal blobs started forming, and then immediately bursting into flames. He had just discovered a brand new element. And in a moment of beautiful simplicity, he named it right after its source, potassium, which of course we know today as potassium. That's right, the name of that element that's in your bananas and sports drinks comes directly from a pot full of ash. Now, pure potassium is seriously reactive. It literally explodes on contact with water. But it's that exact same chemical energy, when it's in its compound form, potash, that made it so incredibly important throughout human history. Think of potash as the Swiss Army knife of early industry. If you mixed it with animal fat, bam, you got soap. If you added it to sand, it lowered the melting point, making it way easier to create glass. But its most explosive use? Well, if you mixed a potash solution with manure, you could create potassium nitrate, or saltpeter, a core ingredient in gunpowder. And its importance just kept growing. This stuff became so vital that it was one of the main exports of the early American colonies. By 1788, the state of Massachusetts alone had over 250 facilities just dedicated to burning wood for ash. And then in 1790, the brand new United States government issued its very first patent. So what was this groundbreaking #1 invention for? A new kind of steam engine? The cotton gin? Nope. It was for an improved process for making potash. And just to give you an idea of how big a deal this was on a national level, that first patent was signed by none other than President George Washington himself. That's how critical this simple substance was to building an entire nation. But there was a huge problem with making potash from wood. It led to massive deforestation. Something had to change. And in 1861, it did. The next big step came not from a forest, but from deep underground. Miners over in Germany discovered they could actually extract potassium compounds directly from rock. This discovery changed everything. It meant potash could suddenly be produced on a massive industrial scale, and that led to the discovery of its most world-changing use of all. With this new mining method, Germany quickly took over the entire market. At one point, they controlled 95% of the world's supply. And then, just before World War I, they cut off exports. It was like a preemptive strike that threatened the entire world's food supply. So why'd they do that? Because they had figured out potash's real superpower. You see, along with nitrogen and phosphorus, potassium is an absolutely essential nutrient for plants. It helps crops grow way bigger and makes them much more resistant to drought. It was, and it still is, an incredible fertilizer.
So this discovery sent countries all over the world scrambling to find their own potash, including the US, which found huge deposits right under those red rocks in Moab, Utah. But getting to it was incredibly dangerous, which led to a tragedy that brings us right back to those blue ponds.
It turns out potash deposits often trap pockets of flammable natural gas. And on August 27, 1963, as miners were working deep underground, they hit one of those pockets. A single spark from their equipment ignited the gas, causing a massive, catastrophic explosion. 18 men lost their lives that day. The disaster made it painfully clear that a new, much safer way to mine was desperately needed. And this is the absolutely ingenious solution they came up with. Instead of sending people down, they send water. Water from the nearby Colorado River is pumped nearly 4,000 feet underground. Down there, it dissolves the potash salt, creating a salty brine. That brine then gets pumped back up to the surface and into those giant ponds, where the hot Utah sun does the final job of evaporation. The water molecules, they literally become the miners. This whole process connects everything. That ancient recipe, the Industrial Revolution, and the modern challenge of feeding billions of people on our planet. And it finally explains the mystery we started with. So why that brilliant blue color? Well, it's not natural at all. A blue dye, copper sulfate, is intentionally added to the water. It actually serves two purposes. First, it kills any algae that would try to grow in the ponds. And second, the dark color absorbs a lot more energy from the sun, which dramatically speeds up the whole evaporation process. Okay, so why does any of this matter? Well, the potash harvested from these ponds and others just like them is a key ingredient in the fertilizer we use today. And right now, it's estimated that modern fertilizer supports half of the entire world's population. Every other person on this planet owes their existence, at least in part, to this very process. From a simple pot of ash to literally feeding billions, the story of potash is just an incredible reminder of how these unseen elements shape our world. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? If one substance from our past underpins so much of our present, what other invisible elements are shaping our future right now?